What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with something a little bit different, sort of like a normal takeaways video. And as you guys can see, we are calling this What I Learned. And in this case, it's what I learned from the Lions' 29-0 loss to the New England Patriots. So let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions. And we are. We're going to do it this year.
And we're going places, because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to a video. Glad you guys are here, and we are back with what's kind of like a normal takeaways video, but just a little bit different. It is a few days later after the game, so that's why it's a little bit different. And I also do plan on still diving into the film from this game, showing you some of the all-22 look offensively and defensively. But because we have the extra week because of the bye week, there's really no rush to get to it, and I was kind of busy the last few days, so we're going to get to that eventually. That's the plan. I have rewatched this game with the all-22, taking notes offensively and defensively. So in this video, I mainly just wanted to discuss some of the good, some of the bad, what I feel like I learned from this last game against the Patriots. So it's basically a takeaways video, but, you know, I'm just saying that because it's different. That may not even be in the title. You know, I might not even put that in the title. I might come up with something that's even better, but it'll probably be in the title. Now, one rule that we've kind of created over here, or I guess I made it up, but I'm rolling with it, and I've been rolling with it for a little while now, is that on game day, the day of the game, you are allowed to be a little bit extra emotional, whether that's good or bad. If your team loses, you're allowed to be more overheated than usual. You could say some crazy things that maybe when you take a step back, you're like, okay, I'm not really on board with that. Or the opposite. If you win and you're like, dude, we are a Super Bowl team, and then you take a step back, you're like, okay, wait a minute, hold up. That may have been a little bit too much. You're allowed to do that on game day because it's game day. Sunday's the emotional day. And that's kind of what it was on Rad's channel right after the game. We haven't really done a takeaways video over here, so that's why I wanted to do this video. We'll throw some clips in of the game, things like that, but we haven't done one. So I wanted to do this video just to discuss this game one more time before we get into some of that stuff. And then, of course, next week we're going to start to get back to the injury report and all of that. But on Rad's channel after the game, clearly we were both heated. Emotions were high. I mean, you just got shut out. You just got shut out. You played a third-string quarterback. You know, I knew it was going to be difficult. I actually think a lot of things that we kind of thought we were going to see in this game came true. So, you know, hey, you know, clap for us. We did a preview show, I think, the day before on this channel, and we were kind of accurate with a lot of things that we talked about is probably going to show up in this game. Now, the score, not so much. I did think it would be lower scoring, not 0, okay? I thought it would be lower, not 0. Let's start with a positive note from this game. It is on the defensive side of the ball, and it's something that I feel like we've been seeing for a little while now. Unfortunately, there's a bad side to this as well, but one thing that I feel like has been pretty consistent to this point, we've looked at the all-22, is that specifically the interior of the Lions' defensive line has been pretty darn good against the run. All right, and this, I don't know if I would say this was their best game, but it was probably close, especially when you're talking about Aleem McNeil and Isaiah Buggs. When you just isolate those two, Buggs had a defensive hands to the face, which negated a 1-yard, run stuff by Aiden Hutchinson. But aside from that, these two guys on the inside, Aleem even got some pressure in this game, and even Benito Jones, who got in there, mixed it up a little bit and made some plays. They mixed in Demetrius as well, a little bit as an interior defensive tackle. Seemed to struggle a little bit with the double teams, a little bit, but he got some push as well. But mainly those two plus Benito Jones, I thought they had a heck of a day as a whole in this game. I mean, it was actually pretty darn good against the run, and it may be hard to, I'll show some clips as I discuss this. As Dan Campbell said right after the game, I think he made a great point. Our run defense was good aside from 2 runs where we didn't really fill our assignments correctly and they broke for big gains. So when you look at those 2 runs, I think that he's talking about, because I don't know for sure, there was a run in the second drive that went for about 49 yards. Backer feeling a little bit too far outside, and then A.J. Parker kind of leaves where he is on the backside, and it opens up a hole, and they pick up a big run. But again, the good positive is that this interior defensive line has been playing really well, and I think you saw in this game the Lions were really aggressive with their front. They were really aggressive. They gave different looks. They gave some 3-3-5 looks. They put a lot of guys on the line of scrimmage in this game. They mixed different personnel in. I knew that was going to be key in this game because New England, having their third-string quarterback in, was going to try to play through the run game, kind of like we were. And I thought we handled that pretty well. If you take away those 2 big runs, which obviously they count to it, I think as a whole we gave up 176 yards rushing, but if you take out their 2 big runs where the Lions just blew assignments, and I don't believe either of those were defensive line related, on the game they averaged 3 yards per carry, which would have been 101 yards for 33 carries. 3 yards per carry, that's it. So the stats show it, but also the film, the defensive line played well, and I really think that's something to build on. But I think it's also something that we've seen now for a few weeks is that this interior defensive line has done a good job. Specifically, Ali McNeil has been awesome. And then Isaiah Buggs, I wouldn't say he's playing at the same level, but he's making a lot of plays as well. And those two have been pretty interchangeable with how they can line up pre-snap, taking on double teams in this game. I thought they were really quick into the backfield on a lot of their zone runs. That's awesome. Now, Austin Bryant, if we want to spread it out a little bit wider to our defensive ends, I thought there was a few times, because Austin Bryant mainly in this game what the Lions did was they put Austin Bryant at your big defensive end, your strong defensive end position, and they allowed Aiden Hutchinson for a majority of the game, not all game, but for a majority of the game to play against, try to get him on a single offensive tackle, try to put him one-on-one, playing on the weak side of the line of scrimmage. So they needed a guy that could handle the strong side, and that was actually Austin Bryant, so they put him there. And I thought there was some good there from Austin Bryant as well. He made some plays against the run. He had a, jet sweep that they ran that he, brought down for a negative rush. Then there were also a few that I think, he didn't really get off the tight end. Ideally how you would like him to and win that battle decisively. And there were some lanes that were created because of that. But then you also had Aiden Hutchinson one-on-one. And I don't think it was extremely dominant. It wasn't an extremely dominant game for Hutchinson, but you did see some success from that position. Like I said, there was run stuff that he had. He held to 1 yard, but there was a flag. There was a wide receiver screen he brought down. There was about 4 or 5 times I counted him winning, getting into the backfield for pressure. But as a whole, the defensive front has continued to be pretty good and a positive spot for the Lions. Clearly, they need more consistent production in terms of pass rush. One little thing they threw in this game is they started using Demetrius Taylor on the interior on pass downs. They did it one time, I noticed. Now they actually ended up running the football, so it didn't really matter. We held them short of the first down, but we had Demetrius Taylor inside. We had Austin Bryant inside. We tried to put Hutch on the outside. So we did little things like that, but I'm sure when Pascal and Kaminsky gets back, it's going to be huge because you're going to be able to plug those guys back inside, and then it can open up a lot more of the pass rushing ability on those obvious passing downs because you'll have guys that win in the interior. I mean, that's what Pascal did coming out of college, and that's what John Kaminsky did for us before he got hurt. So as a whole, thought the defensive line did pretty well, and linebackers did pretty well too, specifically Alex Anzalone. I thought Alex Anzalone played a really nice game. Obviously, his pass breakup that he had was huge. They had him one-on-one with the tight end. He was in great position, and he broke it up. He had some really nice run stops for us. I mean, they had some little things here, like he may have been partly responsible for one of the big runs that was given up. He got back into the play, but just taking too wide. But they were both playing extremely aggressive in this game, filling up lanes, but credit to those interior defensive linemen. Aleem's holding up double teams extremely well. He wasn't getting mauled back, and he was just allowing our guys to get downhill when they would do that because that's what New England likes to do. And again, I loved how much penetration we were getting on a lot of those zone runs. What continues to be sort of an issue here is, first off, when they go to alignments like 2 tight ends and the Detroit Lions allow something outside, it stresses our cornerbacks to make sure they hold and contain. There was a play later in the game where Jeff Okudah contained well. He didn't dive inside on the receiver. They probably saw this on film that the Lions corners are pretty bad at this, like Minnesota. But Okudah didn't dive inside. He let it go, and then he got out there, and Elliott actually finished it up for a 2-yard loss. But there was another example where Bobby Price maybe didn't get out wide enough, and they broke it for like a first down run. So that continues to be something, and then occasionally you'll get a cutback run where someone's not there, and then they'll break it for like 10 or 11 yards. The offensive side of the ball, I think there were 4 very crucial plays. Now, there were definitely more than that, and we'll take a look at that when we get to the offensive film. But there's 4 crucial plays that I want to discuss that I think obviously would have changed the game if we had a different result. And maybe we could have made different decisions. Whatever it is, there were 4 crucial plays. First off, you have the 2 runs that were stuffed on 4th and 1. I believe they were both 4th and 1. You had 2 runs that were stuffed. The first one came at the very beginning of the game, and this is where the Lions put the defense in a bad spot. And I don't like it. Like, I didn't really like the decision because, again, I felt like this Patriots team, you had to play them, as Dan Campbell said after the game, conservatively. This was a team that probably wasn't going to have the most success moving the football, and I also thought we would struggle a little bit moving the football, which definitely turned out to be the case. I wouldn't say that. We just struggled to score. We moved the football, but we struggled to score. But it wasn't great for our offense. And I thought the matchup, you had to play a little bit differently. Campbell got aggressive on 4th and 1. I can't say I hate his thinking behind it. I still don't love the decision. But he's like, look, we had Penei Sewell. We ran right behind him, Frank, and Logan Stenberg, but there was a blown assignment. He touched on a blown assignment, but he didn't say specifically that play. But I think he probably was hitting to that play because then he said in the second half they put in Evan Brown, and that's because there was an early blown assignment. And that's probably the one. That one's going to get highlighted. Stenberg wasn't bad every play. Get a free defender into the backfield as no one blocks him. And I'm assuming assuming they want Logan Stenberg to get off the block and position himself so he can pick it up on the inside zone. He doesn't. Free defender comes through, and they stuff it, and they get the ball at our own side of the 50. All right, so that's the first one. Then later in the game, this was much later in the game, similar situation, another 4th and short, and the Lions are stuffed on the run. This time, Frank Ragnow falls like right off the snap, and another free defender walks through and blows up the run. So I get the idea of like, this is the strength of our team. We're going to play behind that. I guess I can't really hate that. I don't have to love the decision to do it on your side of the ball in this game. I don't love that. But at the same time, 2 missed opportunities there, and really 2 blown assignments for the offensive line, and you had 2 runs stuffed in the backfield. Then you had a zone read attempt on a 3rd down and short, Lions try to do, which is, again, taking it back to last game, and you look at how we got the 2-point conversion, I'm sure that had something to play into it. Lions tried to zone read with Craig Reynolds, maybe because it was Craig, the handoff was sloppy, Jared Goff wasn't sure if he wanted to keep it or hand it to him, and the edge rusher was kind of diving inside, he ended up deciding just to hand it to him. There was really nowhere to go for Craig Reynolds either way, but the big thing is they lost 7 yards on that play, and Campbell said they had a range for their kicker. Clearly that kicked him out of range. Get it? Kicked him out of range? Stop. But that put him out of range, they ended up punting the next play. And that was a position to maybe at least get a field goal. Okay, maybe we don't love the play call to do a zone read, but that could be more of a hindsight thing because it has worked in the past. I wouldn't say I love it, but with how aggressive they were dialing up these edge rushers, I guess I can see why they did it, but that one was huge. And then finally, the 4th down and 9, which this one, I can't say I like this decision. Even if it was slightly out of the kicker's range, and we would have hated a punt at the time, I can't say I love the decision to go for it here, but 4th and 9, the Lions decided to go for it. And the biggest reason is just because, first off, in my mind, we're struggling to get separation, which was expected. They could play man coverage, and shout out to New England, they did a lot of creative things, but we were struggling to get guys open. I mean, it was as simple as that. We weren't winning matchups when we got one-on-ones, and we were also struggling at times to adjust to disguise coverages that they would throw against us. And on top of that, our pass protection did not have its best day today. Now, when you saw the pass protection pretty good, what do you know? It's on play action on early downs because they're not really sure if it's a run or a pass. But it wasn't ideal, and in this case, you knew it was going to be a pass if you're the defense. They got pretty quick pressure. One thing even Dan Campbell brought up is they attacked their guards, which is something we said we would expect in this game. They did it a lot, and they did a lot of creative ways. They were just running twists and stunts. They also did some delayed blitzes where they would kind of show, then drop out, and then come again, so they come a little delayed. They did a lot of that creative stuff, and the big thing is, of course, if you're not getting your initial matchup that you plan to go to open, if that guy's not getting open, then they can allow you to do things like that. And the Lions have some struggles. Also, their tackles did not have their best day. Matthew Judon, who he said coming in is kind of like the guy on defense to look for with his speed, he got us a few times. And then here on 4th and 9, that's the case. You get sacked on the play. They had possibly 2 drag routes underneath, but neither of them would have probably picked up a first down. And then downfield, they really didn't have time as Josh Reynolds. Khalif Raymond, I think, was on this play, and I think they were trying to get it to him potentially because he was actually getting some separation with his speed, but that didn't happen. And then on top of that, you lose the football and it's a fumble 6. That puts you in a really bad spot because even if you don't get it, okay, 6-0, right? Still not the great spot you want to be in defensively here, but 13-0 is a big difference because this was kind of those games that could have been a low-scoring game, and now you're starting to get away from the run game that you have, which wasn't the best today. It was still over 100 yards in this game. Wasn't the best, but it also wasn't that bad either. Some of that is also just because of the negative yard stuffs that we had, but we ran the ball pretty well, pretty efficiently, but you get yourself kind of away from that when you fall into a hole. So those 4 plays offensively were absolute killer. And also you can throw in the interception here when it comes to disguise coverages, right? They jump into a cover 4 defensively. Maybe I'm thinking it was probably going to be like a cover 3 based on what the safety was showing pre-snap, and the Lions utilized that fast motion. Tom Kennedy doesn't really push that outside corner to bite, so the outside corner kind of just passes it off to the safety next to him because they're in that cover 4 look. He can do that. He passes him to him, and then he basically just kind of sits and waits, and Goff, who I think hesitated when he initially was going to throw it, and he probably should have just threw it then, he must not even saw that cornerback and just kind of expected it to be there because he put up a little bit later as Tavai tried to come over and carry that route. He threw it a little bit later, and then the cornerback had enough time to slide off and make that interception. That ball needed to come out much earlier, but he was probably anticipating that cornerback was moving as he tried to look off right and come back to it. But again, that one was a tough one. But not even just that play in particular. There were multiple plays where they disguised some coverage, specifically, however, in the red zone. Maybe we thought we were going to get one thing, and then we got something different post-snap, and tie that with the pressure that we were getting, multiple free rushers to the quarterback, which was an issue. Tie that to the pressure that they were getting in this game where we were in obvious passing downs. And then on top of that, even when we did know sometimes the coverage, sometimes guys didn't get open. There was a basically three-play sequence. I don't think the first one counted. We went to what you would say is our top 3 weapons. 1, 2, 3, boom. None of them were converted. None of them were completed. We tried to get to our 3 top weapons, and none of them were successful. First one, you basically isolate TJ Hawkinson one-on-one here versus a cornerback. That would, who you'd say is probably your top guy coming into this game is TJ Hawkinson, and that's something that we were looking to. A big key here was that the Patriots had Kyle Duggar, which you saw, for example, at the beginning of the game. We tried to do a play action, our crossing route to Hawkinson. We tried to get it to him, and he was absolutely just completely covered up. It's one of those cases where you ran this dig route in the end zone, Hawkinson falls down, there wasn't much space anyway, and there was pressure on top of that, so Goff's hit. But that pass, you're going to your guy one-on-one, there is room there. The issue is that Hawk really doesn't get open. Come back and run another play the Lions have ran in the red zone a lot. I think they call it like a China 7, you know, where basically you have 2 outside like shallow dig routes, like in routes from the outside receivers, and then whoever you put in the slot when you go 3-by-1, which I guess more of a West Coast thing, he kind of runs a corner route over top. Now this can work against 2 high safeties, right? Because then you're making your cornerbacks make a decision. When you look that way, the cornerback's going to slide down and he can go over top, then he's wide open. But in this case, they were getting man coverage. And I'm pretty sure Goff knew that pre-snap. With the tightest alignment on that 3-by-1 side, on that 3 side, is where I'm looking to. He has one-on-one with the defensive back. But again, on this play, you're trying to get this to Josh Reynolds, so that's like another one of your top weapons in this game. This play, there's pressure. Doesn't really give you a chance to kind of wait on this. Plus, Josh isn't really open. That one's incomplete. And then the very next play, you come to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's running like a little bit of a slant crossing route into the end zone here. I think it was catchable. I think Goff put it out a little bit late too. I think he could have protected him and given him a better shot here. But Goff tried to utilize, you know, a pump fake, pull that linebacker out in the running back wheel, and then come back to it. And as he did that, he created a window and he threw it. I think it was a little late, or maybe it just needed a little more zip. It was still catchable, but taking the hit as he caught it, and it was incomplete. St. Brown didn't look 100% this game, and the Lions pretty much acknowledged that he wasn't, because there were multiple routes where he ran where he just didn't look like St. Brown. Like, he looked slow coming in and out of cuts, and I know he's not the fastest guy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying in a straight line. He just didn't look very quick. He looked like he was lumbering a little bit. And on this play, another incomplete pass. Now, I like how the Lions came back even though the game was over, so you don't really notice it. And I do like how Ben Johnson adapted on the fly, and I think they ran a really good route combination with TJ Hawkinson and Craig Reynolds, where they hit Craig on a wide open wheel route, where basically they utilized TJ Hawkinson to set basically a pick, and they put Josh Uche, who usually their edge, you know, because they have these stand-up backers who are really big, they'll usually, you know, come out and kind of carry the flats initially, but in this case, you basically took away Tavai, so you're taking away that opportunity for Tavai to get over, because Uche can hold up initially until Tavai gets over. In this case, they took that away by setting the pick on Tavai and then having the wheel route. You basically put Uche one-on-one with Craig Reynolds, and it led to a wide open route. So that was a cool little play design, and I have full confidence with Ben Johnson. But this game, we did struggle to win one-on-ones. Then there was also, again, situations where we would get something different post-snap than maybe what we thought we were seeing, and Goff could have helped us in a few of these occasions a little bit more. There was one, I think the Lions were anticipating zone coverage. They showed that. That's what it looked like. And then they jumped into man coverage, but they do all these cool off-man coverage looks where they're off-man. They communicate so well pre-snap, or even the play where we tried to hurry up and go get tempo and then toss it out to St. Brown. I mean, that top outside cornerback was all over it. He didn't even bite on Josh Reynolds. He immediately jumped down as soon as the ball came out and just shut that play down. We were trying to force their safety to try to get through all this traffic, even though, again, St. Brown didn't look 100% right. You put him in the backfield, you know you got to look there, but they pass this off without a problem at all. But then you get this play where the Lions try to set up what's one of kind of like their dagger looks, and they do this all the time. We always take a look at this on film. It looks like they think it's possibly cover 4, so they're trying to take both of the, you know, they're trying to basically isolate the 2 safeties in the middle of a cover 4 look with the fast motion. Okay, so we'll just isolate these 2 guys. But what happens is that they can't isolate them because it's actually man coverage. So the slot cornerback actually plays man coverage on the dig route, and because of that, it's not really open. So they're trying to isolate these safeties, run the safeties back, and then he can come underneath with his dig route. The Patriots, it looks like they're in some sort of man disguise here. They basically don't bite on that at all because the cornerback turns into man coverage and he takes that dagger away. So there were situations like that. Also, their 2 safeties don't hesitate at all, and he just jumps this route, so there's no window for Goff. Now, there were also situations like that. Goff rolls out right. Yes, there was possibly some drags underneath, but there was pressure as well, so he didn't really have a chance to get back to that quickly. Still possibly could have hit it. But then the other issue, I think, is that when he rolls right, Hawkinson is not even really running a route. Like, Hockenson has a route, but he's running it kind of just like, I'm not getting the ball. He kind of walks through it, and when Goff rolls that way, he's like, dude, there's nowhere for me to put the ball, so he just throws it away. Like, he's not really running the route with emphasis. But then there's one later a little bit where the Lions try to set up again one of those wheel routes, and they changed it, and it turns into cover 3 defense, so they don't get what they're looking for defensively. So this time, as they're trying to set up this wheel route with like the post underneath, as they try to set it up and basically clear out the wheel route, as Goff looks that direction, you can see that the cornerback continues to back up, kind of be in the way, and Goff doesn't have it. I think he takes a little bit too long waiting, and then he comes back to the middle. Before he comes back to middle to see that Josh was open, and by the time he sees it, it wasn't open. But if he would have got to that a little bit quicker, he possibly could have had him in the middle of the field. It's a lot of stuff like that. It was a lot of stuff like that where either we would struggle to get open, or they would disguise some coverage, and that gave us some issues as well, specifically when we're in obvious passing downs, because they can do things like that, right? When it's more basic, it's easier for us. But when they start to get us in obvious pass downs, we're trailing by 20, it's difficult because they can do all these games up front, which gets pressure. And then on top of that, they can disguise everything in the back end, which they are really sound at. Some of the best corners in football are on that team, and that's what it looked like. Well, personnel things, I thought Mike Hughes looked really good at outside corner. I mean, was it perfect? I wouldn't say it was perfect, but he was pretty darn good. And he looked like he could play outside corner, which we knew when we signed him he could do that. He did that with KC, and he was really good. So I think you took away from this game, this guy could probably stick at outside corner. The issue then on top of that, if you try to stick him at outside corner, is who is your slot. I don't know if I would trust, based on this game, A.J. Parker sticking in the slot. He looks good in zone. He passes off coverage really well. He's still a very smart player in that sense. But just man-wise, it's like too easily sometimes he can be picked on. Now, he did have a good rep on an out route, but he can be picked on a little bit in man coverage. And I don't know if the Lions would feel comfortable with going forward with saying, hey, he's the slot, right? So I think that's the biggest issue. But I think Mike proved he could play outside corner, and he could handle the physicality of that. He was hitting guys. He was moving really well. He's keeping up on top of deep routes. He looked good out there. But, of course, if you get Jerry back, then you don't have to do that. And if he looks the same, you can put him on the outside, and you should be okay. But I do think that there should be consideration. However the Lions feel about AJ playing in the slot, especially if they like him in the slot, definitely, if you're going to put AJ in the slot, put Mike Hughes at outside corner. Don't just have him sitting on the side, because he looked pretty darn good, okay? Now, this wasn't a huge sample size, but we've seen in the past, the guy can play outside corner, and he looked good in this game. On top of that, getting a strong side defensive end back in either John Kaminsky or Josh Paschal is going to be huge. I think the Lions can continue to go forward with what they try to do on the front. It wasn't the best game from Bryant, but he did have some good in there. But I think when you get a little bit guy that's built a little bit more to handle that, whether that's Paschal, who did it in college at Kentucky, and then he would slide in on pass downs, or whether that's John Kaminsky, who did this in a rotational role to fill in for Aiden, who's already done it. Either one of those two guys, depending on how long Charles is out, they want to stay doing that personnel-wise, then I think those two guys would actually help, and that would make it better. Now, the biggest thing here would be, what do you decide to do if Charles Harris is healthy, right? Do you try to keep Charles one-on-one on a tackle more often than not, playing him on the weak side? Do you have to put Charles in on the strong side? Do you believe that he can handle that? The Lions weren't doing it because of body types. So that would be the biggest question with that, if they decide to consider something like that going forward and continue to try to do that going forward. He's playing a good tackle in this game, and Trent Brown, who's not easy to beat, but there were occasions where Hutchinson did win in this game. But that's been an issue, is that, of course, when you're getting exploited in coverage, you can't really get pressure. You watch Washington. Why do we get sacks? Well, we did well in the back end. When you're not always doing that, you're going to get exploited in terms of you're not going to get pressure fast enough to get to the quarterback when you get a lot of those quick passes. Defensively, the 2 PIs by Jeff Hurt, I thought he was in not a bad spot really on either of them. He needs to continue to improve to find the football, and that's been it's been a huge issue. We talked about it coming into the year, and it continues to be sort of an issue for him, is finding the ball on those deeper routes. And the biggest thing is not always finding the ball. Sometimes it is with where he has his eyes, but he usually gets his head around at the right time, right? He has a sense of when the receiver's looking for it, he looks for it, but it's more so he kind of grabs at the top of the route. Sometimes he doesn't need to. So that's been an issue. On top of that, safety-wise, I like Kirby. I like what he's doing, and Kirby, I think, should continue to start from what I've seen. That could lead you to saying, do we put Iffy back at cornerback and consider that? Maybe. But I would continue to start Kirby at safety. I don't know if the Lions will, but I like what he's doing. He almost had a pick in this game. It came back because of a PI. But that was the Kirby at Illinois that you saw. That kind of range is what you saw at Illinois. That was awesome. I like him at safety, and I think he's been in a lot of good spots for us. I think he's playing pretty well, actually, for how raw he is, considering coming out of the preseason. And I don't know how much they trust him to get super versatile yet. And this game is a little bit different because they seemingly just put Elliott in the box when he had to come in, and then Kirby deep for a majority of the time. But I like him, and I like where it's going. Now, Deshaun Elliott, obviously he should start going forward. Okay, I mean, I didn't really understand what the Lions were doing to think that he shouldn't start coming into this game. I guess they were just like, look, because we talked about it. This was a game where, yeah, I guess if you're going to change up personnel, this is a game to do it. But there are also certain guys that feel like that's not the issue. And I don't think the Lions even felt necessarily that he was a big issue, because if you think about it, they had Amani inactive. We knew that was a problem. So they had him inactive because they wanted to see other guys. But in this game, they didn't have Elliott inactive. Actually, when Savion went down, hopefully he's okay. I think we heard he flew back to the team with concussion protocol. But when he went down, we went back to Deshaun Elliott. We didn't go to, we had Juju Hughes inactive. We didn't go to Iffy right away, right? We didn't go to someone else. We went to him. So to me, they still liked him. I think it was just part of they wanted to move certain guys around, I guess, and get looks at certain guys. But it's clear Elliott should continue to start. He's playing good football. He has been playing good football. He brings the energy to defense. He hits, and he had a pick in this game, which was awesome. But his footwork, his man coverage ability, the one time he gave reception when he hurt himself, but then he came back, I love me some Deshaun Elliott. So he needs to continue to see the field. Let's stop playing around with this guy. I felt like we won the offensive line battle hitting on this quickly in terms of the run game. I think we did. I think Penei Sewell had a really good game run blocking. I think Decker had some good for sure, especially getting to the second level. I think we did pretty good. I don't think Stenberg was bad, but it was those two crucial, 4th and 1s where we blew blocks and then that happened. But for the most part, I thought we actually got a lot of consistently good movement. I don't think our tight ends blocked extremely well in this game. However, when you take a look at pass protection, it was not our best. Not our best. And they had a lot of games, which was issues, but sometimes we were just beat one-on-one, whether that was Decker or Sewell. It was not our best game. It was not the most clean game today. I think they should consider, depending on where the receiver's health at, I think they're hoping that they're going to have Chark back and some of these guys that can win one-on-ones, because clearly the Lions' future outlook, they need a guy that's just a number one. That it's like, there's no question he's the guy. And I know St. Brown is kind of that, especially when he's healthy, but I think you just need a guy on the outside who's a number one. And that was the reasoning for drafting J-Mo. They need that, and they understand they need that, right? Because some games it doesn't matter. Like, it hasn't mattered up to this point. But I think there's also occasions where you just need your guy to beat their best. And they're like, look, we can design it to go to him, and we can actually throw the ball to him, right? If he's covered, we can give him a chance, and he's going to beat your guy more times than not. And he'll at least dictate some coverage where you can't just play the same player every way. Like, there was no one getting doubled in our last game, right? There's none of that. So we need that guy. And they're hoping J-Mo's going to be that. But I think for sure in the meantime, now with Chark back, that may not be as much necessary. But I would look to Khalif Raymond and trying to find more ways to get him involved. There was an out route that we missed to him. I think Goff threw too far outside. But there was also a big completion that he hit to him when he moved out of the pocket. It hit him on a deep curl route. I think Khalif Raymond is someone to consider. I think there was another play design where they actually tried to hit him on a double move. The pressure just got there so fast that he had no chance over the middle. I understand that over the top, we haven't always connected on those, but I would look to Khalif Raymond specifically. If you're just talking about winning one-on-ones, if we're struggling to do that, I would look to get some designs to Khalif Raymond, because while he can be kind of thrown off, at the line of scrimmage, he can get also separation if he's clean. So I would look to him. Now, there was one certain occasion where the Detroit Lions threw on a 3rd down, which set up the 4th down, where the Lions threw Goff threw like a whip route, and St. Brown really didn't get out of it. This is just kind of an example where St. Brown stumbled off the line, he got tripped up, and Goff had pressure, so he had to get the ball up very quickly, and Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't even go into his whip yet, and it was incomplete. But because how the pressure was there so fast, and he started to have the move, that where this is designed, I got one-on-one, he's in motion pre-snap, this is the guy that I want, this is my guy that I trust to win, which is St. Brown, you're looking to go there, and when pressure comes off the backside, I don't have time to say it's not there, I'm going way over here, like that's difficult. So while he's looking there, he kind of stumbles off the line, doesn't really ever even get out of a break here, and there's nothing there. So personnel-wise, we weren't ideal in this game offensively. As I said, I have some confidence in Ben Johnson. I love how he started to change things up during the game. They went to some tempo, quick passes, stick routes. We'll take a look at more of this during the offensive film stuff, but I like how he adjusted. He didn't win them all, but he tried creatively to get some things to work. But I really do think it wasn't as bad as we originally thought. I think defense took a step, right? 3 for 9 on 3rd. But the issue is that was kind of expected. But I guess the good thing is I think consistently we've seen this interior defensive line do pretty well. The run game has still been pretty consistent. It's just unfortunate we had to get out of our game plan in this game, and also give credit to New England. I thought they did a heck of a job. Next up we have Dallas, and I haven't gotten into Dallas very much, but I'm optimistic this offense is going to get it back. I don't think Dallas has the corners. I don't think any team really has the corners in terms of depth like the New England Patriots do, and hopefully we get some of our guys back. But there was definitely more good in there than I originally thought. And I'm not looking at like, hey, we should be firing guys right now. I don't think that should be happening. I'm not on board with that at this point, because I did see, Aaron Glenn did some creative things in there as well. Give him some credit. He disguised some coverage, threw off the offense occasionally. But I think one big thing is that cornerback play needs to be better. And I think with getting Jerry back, now seeing Mike Hughes, the Lions have some legitimate options. But as long as we continue to improve and stop the run, I think we're going to give ourselves a chance. But the biggest thing, again, is contain, cut back lanes. That has been the biggest issue. It's not really the initial lane that's continually giving us problems. We're actually usually shutting those off. It's when they cut back, or it's when they get something outside and we don't set the edge consistently. That's been where we're getting into problems. And that's where you start to look at our secondary players for filling their lanes and being where they're supposed to be and not getting out of position. Anyways, let me know your thoughts and comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.